Hey, welcome. Episode 7 of the Babes Talking Business podcast. We're actually really pumped to be bringing you today's show because it's on money and mindset. Loz and I kind of delve into our own personal stories around money and mindset that we've, developed over the last few years, and firm believers that, this is an integral part to business, and it's something that we've definitely had to develop over the years to build our businesses to where they are today. So we chat about our journey and why we're so obsessed with wealth creation and wealth principles, because believe it or not, we were not financially savvy not so long ago. So we're just excited to, shed some light on what we know, and hopefully it adds value to your life today. So if you're loving our podcast, guys, we would love for you to rate us and drop us some love on iTunes, because right now I think we have like 3 reviews, and let's not lie, that's our mums. So we want to do something really exciting and do a shout out a week on our Instagram page for anyone who reviews us. So when you give us those 5 sparkly stars and you give us your feedback, don't forget to leave your Instagram handle or website so we could potentially shout you out. We'll do 1 a week. Please don't forget, follow us on Instagram by heading over to @BabesTalkingBusiness. You can check out our website at www.babestalkingbusiness.com. And this podcast is actually a vlogcast, meaning that you can actually watch each interview on YouTube by heading over to our channel. All the links for all of these can be found below in the podcast notes and on our website as well. Hope you love this one. Are we going to defy this Mercury retrograde?
I reckon we should do it. I reckon we could do it. I think we're really powerful enough to do
If this doesn't work... Anyway.
Zone into a positive energy.
How cool has this season of our vlogcast been so far?
It's been so cool. I've been loving learning just from other people and being inspired to think differently. I think bigger as well. Like, I think so many times you get caught up in your own little business bubble and you kind of think, oh yeah, like what can I do now? And it just kind of makes you just, the possibilities.
I know, it's been really cool. We've spoken to some really cool business people who are just like killing it in their industry, and I've just learned so much. I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Yeah, especially like imagine making a 6-figure income and not owning any property.
That was a good episode. That was awesome.
I was like, maybe I could do that. I hope you guys have been taking notes and been listening in.
And Fuddy and Karina, and just, it's been really cool so far. So what is our theme? What is our topic for today's Loz and Chani?
I think we're going to talk about money and mindset, our own personal money and mindset stories, because I think a lot of people, they tune in and they might see our journeys and you hear from us briefly, but maybe you don't really know what our journey's been like with money and why we're so interested in wealth creation and wealth principles as well.
That's true. Because, I definitely, if I rewind back 10 years ago, I was not financially savvy at all. In fact, I was in thousands of dollars of debt with maxed out credit cards and living beyond my means, and just had no concept around savings or even wealth creation and having your money work for you.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. I think
there's a lot of Gen Y babies that are probably listening who can relate to that too, because we're called the brat pack. We're like the generation who want things now.
Yeah.
So lots of us don't learn delay gratification, having to work for something. They're just I'll put on a credit card. If I want something now, I'm going to have it now.
Yeah, that's so true. Simon Sinek does a really good TED Talk on that, actually.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he does. He talks about how Gen Y are just so I want it now. We're so used to having an app where we can just get Uber Eats to our front door, or we can shop online now, or just everything's so instant. And it never used to be like that. You used to have to work for something, and it used to be like that in the working industry, the working field. You have to work hard for your money.
Yeah.
And he says something really cool about how, I'm not ragging out on Gen Y because I am Gen Y, but he actually speaks about why so many people are now creating businesses, and it's because we have this thing where we're we can do it better and we can do it bigger and we can do it faster. That's our mentality these days.
I do actually remember reading that chapter because he spoke a lot about how the older generations can actually leverage off working with us, because a lot of stuff that we do bring to the table, and just knowing that sometimes we're hard to work with because we have unrealistic expectations. Like, we want this, we want it now. But he talks about how they bring like new energy to the table and how you can really work with that. So is that Eaters Eat Last? I think that was the book that he talks about. It's in the last chapter of that too.
Yeah.
If you want to listen to that, it's a really
It's
good
his
one.
jam. Like, start with why and his TED Talks and stuff. I think he just like that's his thing.
It's your thing.
Yeah.
I remember hearing your story. I think you shared it at a conference once, actually, when you spoke about the fact, like, your story with money, and you're talking about when you sat at the petrol station that time, and you're like, oh my god.
Yeah, that was like a real defining moment for me, and I'll share the story for those who haven't heard it. I guess when where was I? I'm trying to take myself back. I was a nurse already, so I'd finished university and I'd been working as a nurse for like however long, and I was still dead broke. Like, all through uni, I lived on credit cards because anyone who's done nursing or has done anything similar to that, it's like you work for 40 hours a week and you don't get paid. That's part of like just your practical, it's part of your degree. So I'm like working my ass off, learning at the same time, not getting paid, literally only had like the weekends to work. And working 40-hour week as a nurse, like, you don't want to work on the weekends. Like, you are so tired. And of course, and I did this when I had student nurses, but like, you'd give them all the hard shit because you're like, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to give it to the student nurse. So you're like busting your butt.
Yeah.
No time for work, no money. So I just lived on credit cards. And I remember like I'd buy my groceries with it. I'd fill my car up with fuel. I'd like spoil myself a bit, well, all the time. I was just like literally living off a credit card. And I remember the bank giving me a $2,000 limit when I first applied for it. And $2,000 back then was like, oh my gosh, I've got $2,000 to work with here. Like, I was just like on cloud nine. I was like, yay. And then, you know, like every quarter or whatever, like I'd get a credit card increase, and like they kept increasing my credit card because I was such a valued customer, because I was, you know, paying my bill all the time. But little did I know, I had no education that I was actually just paying the bare minimum. I wasn't paying it off. I was like just giving the minimum, and I was like paying interest, and it was just like a nightmare. So I find myself finishing uni and I'm like, yay, I can pay off this $10,000 credit card that I have, maxed
Plus your
out,
HEX debt.
plus my HEX debt. Oh my gosh, and it was so hectic because I started working, and what was my wage back then? Like, as a year one nurse, I think I was on like, let's say $22 an hour. I can't remember now, how bad is that? But so I was working about 38 hours a week, so I was on like an average income, but I just wasn't getting ahead still. I was still like, all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can afford rent to be more, and I can afford this now and that, and I just didn't have the mentality of, I have this debt and I need to get rid of it. I was just paying the bare minimum. So I remember one day, like, I was on my way to work and I was just about to run out of fuel in my car, which was like the story of my life. Literally.
I'm sure so many people in the line being like, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, like literally like seeing that thing flash. Like, it happened to me so many times where it was like flashing empty, and I was like, I've still got 10Ks to go. I still have, like, you know. So I'm filling my car up. I look in my bank account. I literally have nothing in there. I had a $5 note in my wallet, and I was like, I need this $5 to get me from A to B, and it needs to last me until next payday, which was going to be the following week. So I was just like, fuck. And yeah, I just remember like I was putting fuel in my car and I wasn't paying attention, and it went over the $5, and I was just like, oh my God, like I literally don't have any money. So I walk in there with my $5, and I'm like, I remember like putting my hands down all the seats in the car because I was like, there's got to be coins in here somewhere. I'm like looking in every glove box, and yeah, like walked in there so embarrassed and like tail between my legs. And I just explained, like, I've only got a $5 note. And of course, like, I used to work at a petrol station, and I know how annoying that is. Like, the chick was like, oh my God. So yeah, I just remember like sitting back in my car, and like hands on the steering wheel, and just like bawling my eyes out because I was like, what am I doing? Like, what? I have no money. I actually have a really good job. I'm getting paid quite well, and I have no money, and I have this $10,000 credit card that I balled out on like for the last couple of years. and like I'm going nowhere. So I remember that was like the defining moment for me where I was like, I need more money. I need to create something for myself where I can create a separate income stream or a little business on the side, or like I need to sell something on eBay. Like I was just like, what can I do? And that's when my brain started ticking.
I love that too, because it's like you get taught so many things at school, but nobody actually teaches you about money. Like, why don't they teach us stuff that we can actually use? Like
Seriously, geography or whatever, history in high school, like I don't use that.
Yeah.
Why didn't you teach me how to budget?
Yeah, like budget, or learning about different streams of income, or learning about the tax man, and learning about all the jargon that goes with it. Like, we all need money. We all have bills to pay.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I know firsthand, like, listening to your story, I know other people listening in, like, so many people can relate to that. But it's like they actually never knew any better. And lots of the times people get their education around money from their parents. So if their parents haven't been taught well about money, you learn how to manage money, your mindset's what you kind of inherit. And I remember I didn't actually become aware of my money story. Like, everyone's got your own money story.
Yeah.
I remember being young and just being so stingy with money. Like, I honestly remember, like, I would never shout anyone anything if it was like a bill. I was that annoying person. I was like, yeah, but I didn't eat any meat, so mine's like $5 cheaper. Or I didn't drink any alcohol.
We've all got one of those friends.
Yes, that was me. That was totally me. And I think it wasn't until I started reading and learning more about wealth creation, but the actual mindset around money, where you start to learn about, like, with anything, like, you actually have a story and you can change a story at any time. So learning a lot about, like, the wealth principles, and I know you're a massive believer in the universal laws as well. And, like, coming from that place of abundance, like, I remember this, you just kind of look at money, think it's just money, and you just pay for something and that's the end of it. But when you start delving into it, there's so many awesome resources out there when you can actually completely change that around.
Yeah. And I talk about my mentors who helped me through that. In fact, we've got them on one of the episodes coming up. And Mitch and Mills taught me this amazing... Well, first of all, I did their money mindset course, and it was a 2-day seminar which completely changed my life. Like, I walked in with a $10,000 credit card and I walked out with chopping it in half because I was just so determined to get rid of that thing. But it's so much more than saving and being really good with your money. It's totally a mindset thing. And like you said, like, we carry this story around. There are certain times in our lives through our childhood where we perceived something to be bad, or we perceived something to have affected us. I know for me, like, my story was how I perceived the people at my school to be with their money. I went to a really great school, but I wasn't really rich, and everyone I went to school with was, and so my money story started there. So this seminar was amazing because it helps you, like, delve into what your brain does, why you have these characteristics, why you have this way with money, the way you think about it. Like, how do you think about people with money? Are they bad or are they good? How do you perceive people who are successful? Are they, like, were they sleazy? Like, is that how they became successful, or do you really admire them? Like, there's so much groundwork there, and this course really helped me because, and this isn't a plug for the course, it literally was what changed me, and my mindset made me think, like, oh my gosh, I have some baggage I've got to deal with, and it really helped.
It's like that activity, like, I'm sure I think you've done it a few times as well. Like, if you're someone who doesn't even think you've got a money story, like, sit down with a piece of paper and you write down, what is it, like, a rich person is. A really rich person is. Like, don't even think about it, just write down the first thing that comes up. What are some other things that they get you? There's some really good ones.
Yeah, like, I can't remember now. I remember that activity though.
Oh, I've done it a few times now, and it's so crazy because if you don't give yourself time to kind of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like, edit what you're trying to think. You just get your instant reaction when you're writing down the finishing of that sentence. That's when you become really aware of the shit that you're actually thinking about money. Like, and how you perceive people who have money, people who perceive you don't have money, or... Yeah. It's crazy.
It's so true. Actually, I remember when I went to India last year, like, I thought all my money shit had been dealt with last year when I went to India. And India, oh my God, was like this huge mirror. It was like this massive reflection for me. I did a blog on it because I was like, I need to express what I've just tapped into over here. And it was so interesting, like, what came up for me over there. Like, I've never been a materialistic person. Well, I lie. When I was in a really bad mindset with money, I was very materialistic. I always had to, like, I felt like I had to prove myself by buying expensive clothes and handbags and, like, living this, like, rincy lifestyle, which I couldn't afford. And then it's almost like now I'm like, oh, I can't stand that. But going to India made me realize, like, well, why can't I stand it? Like, why do I have this thing about money and why is there so much emotion attached to that? And yeah, it made me really delve deeper into what was going on for me, and it's just amazing.
It is. And I think once you start tapping into like learning about it and reading about it and just thinking differently about money, because it's, like I said, it's school, you don't get really taught about money, but at the same time, you're kind of groomed to think in a certain way about money. If you're somebody who went to traditional school and then you went to university, you kind of said, oh, well, what you do is you work this amount of hours a week and you get an annual income and you have 4 weeks rec leave. And if you're lucky, you'll get 9 months maternity leave. And it's like you kind of get groomed to think this certain way. So you automatically, for most people, and that's why I love hearing from these entrepreneurs, because they're thinking in a completely different way. Is like you're working for money. Like you've got to do something, provide a service or be here for a certain amount of time to be able to get that paycheck. Yeah. And so I love, like, I know Fadi was talking about, like, you leverage off an idea, like having an idea and learning the power in leverage. Yeah. And definitely. I think it wasn't really, because I did go through that traditional schooling and that was the way I was kind of just groomed to think. And I remember it being so woo-woo and out of the box that anything that was different to that, I would think, oh my God, that's illegal, or that's a pyramid scheme, or they're doing something dodgy. But those books, what's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, what's his name?
Rob Kiyosaki.
Rob Kiyosaki. It was like one of the first books. If you're somebody who's just delving into this, it's a really good way to think about the difference in money, because he talks about like having his own dad, his biological dad, and he calls him a poor dad, even though he's someone who's really, really well educated and he did everything he was supposed to do to get ahead. He's still only one paycheck ahead, and he doesn't have time freedom, and he's always exhausted. Then he's got his friend's dad, who's a rich dad, who didn't go to university but thinks outside the box, and he always, throughout the book, and if you're like me and you're lazy, I listen to the Audible, he draws parallels between the different two mindsets and ways of thinking. So if you're someone who's new to this and you want to learn a little bit more about money and mindset, I think that was one of the first books that kind of made me think differently, and even made me aware that there was a different way to think, because you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. One of my favourite, most recent books that's really popular here in Australia at the moment, it's not really like a book that's growing overseas because it's very specific for Australia, but I recommend reading it, is The Barefoot Investor. Yeah. And I love what he writes about, because he actually starts making you think about like retirement, life insurance, protection, and actually budgeting, so that when you've got bills coming out, you're not going to be insufficient funds, or you're not going to like go, overdrawing or anything like that. He actually helps you set up a system where you've got the money in there. And I love his philosophy on, we don't need credit cards. Like that, the banks don't make money from you because of the interest or whatever. Like they're making money off you from your credit card. People who buy credit cards, like, and selling credit cards that's sales. And I love what he says about how why do we need credit cards? We get lured with these points, and I am totally one of those people who got lured with points. I was like, oh my God, I can collect all these points, and if I get a Qantas one, like it's double. And I remember just like buying stuff, I had like, this was recently, like I literally chopped up my credit card. What was it, like a couple of months ago. But before that, I would like pay a bill with my credit card because I wanted the points, and then I'd pay my credit card with the money that I had in my bank account. And this guy talks about how you don't need the points, it's just a sales pitch. They're making money from you actually having that credit card. Someone was telling me this the other day. And they also bank off the knowledge that they know that most people don't pay it before the due date. So they know that's where they make the money, because majority of people are lazy or life gets busy, and they make that money off the doubled interest that actually ends up happening. Or the way that I got done once was, I remember like I looked at my statement and I was like, oh yeah, like, X amount of dollars from my personal development account, X amount of dollars from my food account, and then I paid it, but I didn't actually look at the number at the top, which was what I was actually owing. And then for like 4 months I was behind, and I was paying interest on that amount, because I don't know, I just thought like no one taught me how to read a credit card statement. I know that sounds so dumb, but like literally what happened. And I remember calling up Amex and I was like, why am I paying $80 of interest every month? Like, I pay my bill on time. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you dickhead. I was like,
or this needs to be taught in school?
I love Barefoot Investor because the book is just, and that's what I really love about what we do in Babes in Business as well. It's just really raw and authentic. Like, he doesn't try sugarcoat anything. He kind of says, like, you know, one day you're probably going to die and one day you're going to need to retire. And, like, his whole story starts off talking about he loses everything. Like, he loses his property at the start of the book, and he talks about how he wants to help others and protect them, so because that stuff happens every day.
Yeah.
But another book that Kim Kiyosaki's a rich, what's his name, Robert's wife, wrote one called Rich Woman. And what I love, it's the same kind of thing as Barefoot Investor, but targeted towards women. So there's some good books, guys, if you want to delve into money and mindset. But both of them preach about not actually having to sacrifice your standard of living. Like, you don't live here to pay the banks. Like, you don't live here to pay all these other institutions. Like, you work, if you're 50 hours a week, if that's what you're doing. It's like, enjoy the life you live. So they talk about being smarter with your money instead of saving, or like even looking at making other sources of income as a way to actually get ahead, rather than sacrificing. You worked 50 hours a week, now you have to sit in your little house and hibernate for 2 days because you've got no money to spend because you've paid all your bills. So like, talks about actually enjoying life and creating a life where you can enjoy, like, even just the little things. Yeah.
I love that. And yeah, like we were saying before, like, we don't get taught this in school. We don't get taught in school how to budget, how to have, like, extra money for a rainy day in case you hurt yourself or, you know, something happens to your partner or anything like that. Like, you just don't think about those things. And then we've had certain circumstances where people we know are, like, stuck in a really bad situation, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, you don't think about setting yourself up for something like that.
Especially young girls. Like, I think for me, my aha moment where it really clicked for me was, as you know, like, I went through to university, and I'm not going to lie, one of my biggest intentions behind going to university was because I wanted to get ahead. I was the first person in my family to go to university, and I thought that was a way where I'd have a little bit more skills and expertise where I could kind of get into a job or make my way up that corporate ladder where I'd make a little bit more money and I'd have a little bit more flexibility, so I didn't have to make the same sacrifices my parents did. So I did, like, the uni thing, that corporate ladder thing, and then it wasn't until a couple of years ago I got a call that my nan was passing away, and I remember going down there, and it was obviously a really sad time, and, like, they don't just pass away in your terms. Like, it was like a 2-week drawn out process. Like, is it today? No, is it not today? And then I had leave that was ticking over, and the stress in that whole period caused my mum to have a heart attack. So I remember mum being airlifted to St. Vincent's in Melbourne, and obviously it's a really traumatizing time at the time. I thought I was going to lose my mum, thought I was going to lose my nan. So yeah, mum ended up having, like, emergency up into Melbourne. They ended up putting a stent in, and she came back, but her mum actually passed away on the way back, so mum never got to say goodbye to her mum. And it was like a whole 2 weeks, and obviously it was really sad, and I was grieving for my nan, but I wanted to be there for my mum. I remember this is what really hit me, and being like, I need to be here for my mum, because my mum, because of her heart attack, was too scared to grieve. Like, it was a delayed process, because she's like, I can't cry, my heart's going to have heart palpitations. And just knowing that, like, my mum needed me. Yeah. But what happens in the traditional business world is that I only had a certain amount of annual leave, and I'd used all my grievance leave. And so if I was going to stay, and it's not because of the management I had, it's not that they're heartless. It's just if you're working within a system, like, you only have a certain amount of things that you're entitled to. So being like, well, I have to go back. And I just remember thinking, like, is this what life is going to be like for the next 50 years? If you can't be there when your loved ones need you, there has to be other ways.
That one's still going.
There has to be other ways of making an income where it's not reliant on you actually being there. And then I remember, like, what even hit me even harder was sitting there, and I was even grateful that I had, like, grievance leave and I had sick leave to use, because when we were sitting there by my nan, like I said, I was the first person in my family to go to uni, but my mum's 2 sisters, they never went to uni as well. So they always found themselves kind of working a job, whatever job they could take. Cause they're in their 50s, they're on a minimum wage. They were single mums, so the divorce rate these days 1 in 2. So one of the 2 that was sitting there trying to raise a family by themselves, they never got ahead, so they never had their own homes. They were in their 50s, minimum wage, renting. So if they didn't go to work, they didn't get paid. If they didn't get paid, they couldn't pay their rent, they're on the street. Yeah. And so that really hit me, because at least I had that leave there. Yeah. They're sitting there in their 50s, and it's not that they don't want to go to work. They can't. Their mum's about to pass away. Yeah. And I remember just thinking there, like, we've got to educate and teach women about other ways of making income. So even young women like ourselves, it's not something that we don't have to think about that till, like, 50 or 60.
Yeah, and I get on top of it. Look at life insurance and things like that. And yeah, I have heaps of friends who have started looking into life insurance. Like, we're in our 30s, and a normal 30-year-old wouldn't think about that, but you have to set yourself up.
Yeah.
Totally. Writing your 200 reasons, you would think like, how can I think of 200 reasons why my financial success or my financial abundance will benefit anyone? But it's actually such a beautiful activity because you start to realize, right, well, when I'm financially abundant, I'm able to give back to my charities that I love, or I'm able to give back to my family, or I'm able to spend more time with these people. And then the ripple effect from that. So because I get to spend more time with my family, my mum and dad feel like they have more connection, or my sister feels more worthy or more loved, and with your friends that you're hanging out with because you have more time to hang out with them, like you feel connected, you're a part of a community, and the ripple effect of that and that and that is really cool. So that's one of my most favorite activities to do, especially when I'm feeling like I'm not abundant, because we all snap, like we all go in those snaps where we're like, oh, my goals, like I haven't reached my goals, or I'm not earning what I projected to be earning, or whatever. It's a really beautiful way for you to attract some really cool stuff in your life. I love that activity.
I think that's how we get along so well. We're so woo-woo with our manifestations.
But it's, like people call it woo-woo, whatever, but like there's a universal, there's like something beyond our reality that we can comprehend, and whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it God, spirit, like divine, divinity, whatever you want to call it, there's a universal power out there that like everything happens for a reason. And I remember like when I look back on all my money shit that was going on for me, like pre-university, during and post, like it was all shaping me for me today. Like there's no way that I could be the businesswoman that I am today without all that stuff that happened to me back then.
Yeah.
Because I'd have no concept or no gratitude for what's happened in between that journey from there till now.
Yeah, and definitely I can add to that, because I think knowing that journey, knowing what the reality is, it also gives you that fuel for the fire to help people, like to actually be able to empower, especially in our job, mentoring babes in business, being like, so often they forget that we've been there. Like they compare their chapter 1 to our chapter 20.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we had that money bullshit and we had that lack mentality, and we've got to work the last 2 years, and we've read a lot of books, we've gone to a lot of seminars, like we've tried to, it's not just thinking about it, it's obviously we've put ourselves out there and we've actually had to apply what we're learning. So I think just with anything, like money in itself, it's a journey, and understanding the mindset and understanding some tips and tricks. So some of those books that we spoke about, they're a really good place to start if you're tuning in like, all right, I'm not even aware of my money story. I don't even know where to learn about it. Obviously, disclaimer, we're not financial advisors, so go read those books.
Maybe we can share some of our favourites in the comments section of the podcast and the YouTube channel as well. Yeah. Because that would be really good. Like, I wish at university I didn't do half the subjects and learnt this stuff. Like, it's so important.
Sometimes I think I'm sounding silly. Like my brother's an accountant, and I'll ring him up and I'll ask him like, what does this mean? Or what does this mean on my tax return? And then I'm like, no, I shouldn't feel silly, because where would I have been learned about that? Like you actually aren't educated about it. So don't feel silly in the fact that this might sound all taboo and you have no idea about your taxes or no idea about life insurance or your super. Like most of us aren't educated about that. So it's about getting out there, and the resources are there. Like in this day and age, you've got YouTube, you've got books, you've got podcasts, you've got everything. I love the saying that great leaders maximize resources. And it's so true. Anyone who's like successful in their field, they've maximized all their resources. Like they've tapped into anything and everything that they can. So opening a company, like this is the first time I've ever done that. Thank God for my husband, because he knows all about this. He's opened several companies. So I was like, I like walk into my accountant and I'm like, I need to open a company. And he's like, cool, all right, you need to start paying yourself a wage. And I'm like, oh, what does that look like? And he's like, okay, well, you need to pay yourself a wage, then you pay tax, and then you've got to pay yourself super. And I'm like, what? Like, what? I was just like gobsmacked. I was like, where am I meant to learn about this? So I'm like, making little Excel spreadsheets, like, okay, like 30% of that is this, and super is 9.2%. And I'm just like, oh my God, I need to do a crash course on this. Like, so I'm like now reading books about opening companies and paying yourself a wage and, tax brackets. And it's like, where else would you learn it from? You have to learn about this stuff for you to be successful in it. There's no point me ringing up my accountant for like 3 hours being like, excuse me, I don't understand how to do this. So for you guys who are listening in, I think we just hope that you're loving the vlogcast so much and you're getting value and you're learning from other people and thinking like how you can think bigger, how you can do things differently.
We'd love some feedback.
Yeah.
We'd love to know how it's going, I guess, and follow us. Make sure you're subscribing and sharing it with your friends and family if it's resonating, because we're here to just serve and add value.
Yeah, and then I think if you know a little bit more about our story and like how much you love business, hopefully we'll talk about multi-level marketing in another one as well. Like you can actually understand why that business is such a smart business structure and our actual motivations and intentions for pursuing that when you hear our story and our experiences beforehand. But in regards to money and mindset, we're really excited for you to listen and hear from Mitch and Mills, because I know they've been really big influencing us on our journey with money. So they're coming up, so stay tuned.
Yeah, they're an exciting duo, those two. I love them.
They crack me up.
So, episode, I don't know what episode number this is, but done and dusted.
Boom. Survived the
retrograde. Well, who knows? I don't even know if this is recording.
If this makes it up to YouTube, we won. We bet it.
We beat the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, we did.
F you.
We hope you loved that episode of the Babes Talking Business vlogcast. Guys, we're just loving bringing you these episodes. Our mission is to share and add value to your week, whether you're a budding entrepreneur or you're a veteran in the owning your own business game. Don't forget, if you're loving our podcast, we would love for you to rate us and drop us some love on the iTunes app, because we want to know your feedback. We want to know what you're thinking. Once a week, one lucky reviewer will be shouted out on our Instagram. So when you leave us some feedback on the iTunes app, don't forget to include your Instagram handle and or your website so that we can shout you out. Guys, you can follow us on Instagram by going to @BabesTalkingBusiness. You can check out our website at www.babestalkingbusiness.com. And this podcast is actually a vlogcast as well, meaning you can watch each and every single interview by heading over to our YouTube channel. All the links for all of these are below in the podcast notes and on our website as well. Thanks for tuning in.